at them in ignorance and wonder. And the reason for that is that the unknown shines through them at us in partially articulated form. Well, that's the role of art. And that's the role of artists. Well, that's the role of art. And that's the role of artists. So real artists are contending with the unknown, right? And they're possessed by it. They have a personality trait, openness, that makes them do that. They can't even help it. It makes them do that. They can't even help it. The worst thing for creative people is to not be creative, because they just die. So one of the things I would say is buy a damn piece of art. You know? Find one that really speaks to you and look out if you do it. If it's a real piece of art, because you'll also get a little introduction to the artist, and then that'll seep into your life. That'll change things like mad. But it's unbelievably worth it, because it opens your eyes to the domain of the transcendent. That's the right way of thinking about it.
often referred to this. When you say to somebody else, I love you, it's always rather disconcerting to the person to whom you say that. If you imply that you love them with a pure, disinterested, and holy love, they automatically suspect it as being a little bit phony. But if you say, I love you so much I could eat you, that's an expression, it's a way of saying to a person, you attract me so much that I can't help it. I'm absolutely bowled over by you. I'm gone. And people like that. Then they feel they're really being loved, and it's absolutely genuine. But now, I love you so much I could eat you. But what the devil do I want? I certainly don't want to eat the girl in the sense of literally devouring her, because then she'd disappear. But I love myself. And what is me? In what way do I know me? Well, it suddenly occurs to me that I know me only in terms of you. See, when I think of anything that I know and that I like, then it's always something that can be viewed as other than me. I can never get to look at me, real me. It's always behind. It's always hidden. And I really don't know it well enough to know whether I love it or not. Maybe I don't. Maybe it's an appalling mess. But certainly the things I do love and that I want from a selfish point of view, when I really think about them, they're all something else. That's in a way outside me. You love yourself in terms of what is covered. In terms of what is covered. You love yourself in terms of what is covered. In terms of what is covered. Now we saw that there is a reciprocity, a total mutual interdependence between what we call the self and what we call the other. That's the warp and woof. And so, if you are perfectly honest about loving yourself, and you don't pull any punches, you don't pretend that you're anything other than exactly what you are, you suddenly come to discover that the self you love, if you really go into it, is the universe. You suddenly come to discover that the self you love, if you really go into it, is the universe. You don't like all of it. You're selective about it, as we saw in the beginning. Perception is selection. But on the whole, you love yourself in terms of what is covered. In terms of what is covered. You love yourself in terms of what is covered. In terms of what is covered. You love yourself in terms of what is covered. In terms of what is covered. You love yourself in terms of what is covered. In terms of what is covered. Because it's only in terms of what is other that you have a self at all.
Cats look like they're owned by actresses. This little princess thinks she's the center of the universe. There we go.
Delightful is not some factor of trying to make yourself look delightful. It is to do things that are delightful to you. Do things that are delightful to you. Do things that are delightful to you. You become thereby delightful to others. It is to do things that are delightful to you. Do things that are delightful to you. Do things that are delightful to you. You become thereby delightful to others. That is to say, people who are interesting are people who are interested. Any person, for example, who is
constantly thinking about all sorts of other things and other people and so on, because they're fascinating, becomes a fascinating person. But a person who doesn't think about anybody else and who's got very little going on inside their skull is boring. So in other words, your engagement with the external world, the more you are involved, the more your personality is enriched. Do the things that are delightful to you. Do the things that are delightful to you. Do the things that are delightful to you. You become thereby delightful to others. Do the things that are delightful to you. Do the things that are delightful to you. Do the things that are delightful to you. You become thereby delightful to others. But if you try to enrich your personality by taking a course in how to win friends and influence people, or how to be a real person, you'll become just a washout. You'll be like somebody who tried to get a good nutrition by biting his nails, and then the fingers next, and then half an arm gone and so on. You're entirely nourishing yourself with yourself. Now, of course, on a vast scale, the universe does that. It eats itself up. That's why the symbol of the snake swallowing its tail is a very fundamental, archaic symbol of life. But the way it's done is that the snake has in some part of the ring a place where it's not sensitive. It's called the unconscious. Where it doesn't know that what comes to it in the form of food is actually what left it in the form of excrement. That thing is... Don't mention it. After all, as the Lord said at the beginning of the universe, you must draw the line somewhere. Do the things that are delightful to you. Do the things that are delightful to you. Do the things that are delightful to you. You become thereby delightful to others. Do the things that are delightful to you. Do the things that are delightful to you. Do the things that are delightful to you. You become thereby delightful to others.
Life is tremendously tenacious and has an immense capacity to organize itself to meet any crisis, provided it knows it's coming. There are scars on this planet, enormous scars. There's a scar 1.5 billion years old on the Canadian shield that is twice the size of the lunar crater Copernicus. Now, what is going on? What is going on? What is going on? What is going on? Now, what is going on? What is going on? What is going on? What is going on? This thing that came down 50,000 years ago out near Flagstaff, Arizona, that was a tiny object. It was something like 30 meters across. It was moving 9 times the speed of a rifle bullet. It was 6 miles into the earth in the first second of impact. Everything within 800 miles died instantly, and this was a nothing burger, this thing. An object 500 meters across the planet would ring like a gong for 10,000 years. The thing which killed the dinosaurs, they now believe they have the impact point. At the time of the impact, the entire area was a shallow ocean. But what I find eerie about the location of this impact point is 65 million years afterwards, on this civilization will arise, obsessed with the end of time. A civilization will arise, obsessed with the end of time, and determined to give a date to it. It's within 110 miles of Chichen Itza. It's near Chaltun. It's right in the heart of classic Maya country. What is going on? 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 What is going on?
Tell the truth, or at least don't lie. Do not do things that you hate. Act so that you can tell the truth about how you act. Pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. If you have to choose, be the one who does things instead of the one who is seen to do things. Pay attention. Assume that the person you are listening to might know something you need to know. Listen to them hard enough so that they will share it with you. Plan and work diligently to maintain the romance in your relationships. Be careful who you share good news with. Be careful who you share bad news with. Make at least one thing better every single place you go. Imagine who you could be, and then aim single-mindedly at that. Do not allow yourself to become arrogant or resentful. Try to make one room in your house as beautiful as possible. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. Work as hard as you possibly can on at least one thing and see what happens. If old memories still make you cry, write them down carefully and completely. Maintain your connections with people. Do not carelessly denigrate social institutions or artistic achievement. Treat yourself as if you were someone that you are responsible for helping. Ask someone to do you a small favor so that he or she can ask you to do one in the future. Make friends with people who want the best for you. Do not try to rescue someone who does not want to be rescued. And be very careful about rescuing someone who does. Nothing well done is insignificant. Set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. Dress like the person you want to be. Be precise in your speech. Stand up straight. With your shoulders back. Don't avoid something frightening if it stands in your way, but don't do unnecessarily dangerous things. Do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. Do not transform your wife into a maid. Do not hide unwanted things in the fog. Notice that opportunity lurks where responsibility has been abdicated. Read something written by someone great. Pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. Do not bother children when they are skateboarding. Don't let bullies get away with it. Write a letter to the government if you see something that needs fixing and propose a solution. Remember that what you do not yet know is more important than what you already know. Be grateful. In spite of your suffering. He's got clout.
I encounter self-transforming elf machines, which are creatures, entities, perhaps, although they're not made out of matter. They're made out of syntax driving light. It's one of the most challenging parts of the whole psychedelic landscape. Most people can accept the idea of disordered sensory input, recovery of traumatic memory material, but what are we to do with an elf? What are we to do with an elf? What are we to do with an elf? You know, that becomes a little harder to contextualize in psychoanalytic theory, although Jung did a good job when he said autonomous elements can escape from the psyche's control and present themselves as independent entities. I'm not sure he's ever seen a self-transforming elf machine. It's the defining characteristic of the true DMT flash. I mean, it is not subtle. These things mob you like badly trained Rottweilers. They come bounding forward by the dozens, by the hundred. They jump into your body. They jump out of your body. I mean, it maps to some degree over the archetype of the little people, the leprechaun, the fae, and being Irish and in the Amazon, the people using DMT that I studied, the reason they did it, they said, was to speak with the little people. Was to speak with the little people. What are we to do with an elf? 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 What puzzles me about my contacts with these beings, it conforms to, let's say, the Irish model. They are small, full of merriment, almost to a manic and frightening level. It's sort of like a Bugs Bunny cartoon gone berserk. They are friendly, but play rough. It's a land of explosions and falling anvils. The overwhelming feeling is love, this kind of crazy, childish affection, and they're delighted to have me in their presence. These entities have an agenda. It's a very curious agenda. They use a language which you see. It is made out of sound, but you see it. And the entire point of the encounter seems to be to teach you to do this. They want you to transform your language. They want you to speak elfish. But you know what? If you've never done DMT and you just smoked it and you're 30 seconds into this experience and this is what it's come down to, what are we to do with an elf? What are we to do with an elf? What are we to do with an elf? What are we to do with an elf?
There was a paper published in Nature not so long ago stating, for example, that an area twice the size of the US has greened in the last 15 years. There's more forests in the Northern Hemisphere than there were 100 years ago, and more forests in India and China than there were 30 years ago. And then this has gone along with a massively improved standard of living. The child mortality rate in Africa is now the same as it was in Europe in 1952, which is a statistic that I just regard as absolutely miraculous. The rate of poverty is diminishing at an amazing rate, right? Between 2000 and 2012, we have poverty. It's never been better than this, and it could be so much worse. It's never been better than this, and it could be so much worse. It's never been better than this, and it could be so much worse. So much worse. So much worse. It's pretty hard on the Marxists, I would say, even though there is inequality, and inequality is a problem. First of all, it doesn't look like inequality can be placed at the feet of capitalism. It seems to me to be a far more intractable problem than that. Second, it's clear that the poor are getting richer despite the fact of inequality. And third, and this is hard on the environmentalists, I think, is that it turns out that if you get people's income up to about $5,000 a year in terms of gross domestic product, they actually start to care about the environment, which I suppose is because they're not worried about dying instantly that day or that week. And so we seem to be in this perverse situation for a pessimist where we can make people make the world a better place simultaneously. It's never been better than this. And it could be so much worse. It's never been better than this. And it could be so much worse. It's never been better than this. And it could be so much worse. So much worse. So much worse. And it's highly likely that it will be so much worse. Because for most of human history, so much worse is the norm.
Value of a network is proportional to the square of the number of nodes in the network. If a network of size 10 would have a value of 100, a network of a size 100 would have a value of 10,000. It's not just 10x more, it's 100x more. And so you want to be in a network effect business. If you're number one in the network effect business, you win everything. One of the dirty secrets of Silicon Valley is that a lot of the winning businesses are natural monopolies. What is a network effect? Let's define it precisely. A network effect is when each additional user adds value to the existing user base. So your users themselves are creating some value for the existing users. The classic example that I think everybody can understand is language. Let's say that there's 100 people that in the community speak 10 different languages, and each person just speaks one of those 10. You're having to translate all the time. It's incredibly painful. If all 100 of you spoke the same language, it would add tremendous value. 10 people start out speaking 10 languages, one extra person learns English. Well, now all of a sudden, 11 people know English, so the next person comes to learn a new language is probably going to choose English. And at some point, let's say English gets to 20 or 25 people, it's done. It's just going to own the entire language marketplace, and the rest of the languages will get competed out. Network effects are a very powerful concept. When you're picking a business model, it's a really good idea to pick a model where you can benefit from network effects, low marginal costs, and scale economies. And these tend to go together. Like anything that has zero marginal cost of production obviously has scale economies. And things that have zero marginal cost of reproduction very often tend to have network effects because it doesn't cost you anything more to stamp out the thing. So then you can just create little hooks for users to add value to each other. So you should always be thinking about how your users, your customers, can add value to each other. Because that is the ultimate form of leverage. You're on the beach of the Bahamas, or you're sleeping at night, and your customers are adding value to each other.
as they get closer. And it begins as a sound, very interesting. It begins as a sound, and as it gets louder, there comes a point where imperceptibly it becomes visible. And then all I can say is it gets bigger. Just like someone marching toward you through three-dimensional space. And so it goes from being a little phenomenon on the horizon of your awareness to you're there, you're with them, you're playing the tuba, you're marching along, it's happening. It's happening. And then they peel off and march away and leave you in the same way they came. The archetype of this phenomenon, as far as I can tell, is the archetype of the circus. The circus. DMT is somehow the cosmic circus. The circus. The circus. The cosmic circus. And if you analyze what the circus is, it's a closed environment of permitted outrageousness that roves the straight landscape, setting up in one town and another and another. And it's a thing of wonder and light. And carny people are loose. They're not like you and me. I remember the little town I grew up in. Every 4th of July, the carnival would come to town for Cherry Day. We kids were told we couldn't stay out after 9 o'clock when the carnival was in town because there was just this aura. More liquor was being consumed, more people were staying up late, so forth and so on. And if you analyze the circus, it has all the elements of the DMT thing. I mean, there's the center ring, the clowns. And Henry Munn, in a wonderful essay on psilocybin mushrooms called The Mushrooms of Language, describes them as self-performing acrobatic grammar. This is clearly the same thing. The circus. DMT is somehow the cosmic circus. The circus. The cosmic circus is a wonderful place for children, but it has behind that a dark side, my own earliest reminiscence of what I could call erotic awareness. I must have been very, very young, under 3, because I was being held by people, and I was taken to a circus, and there was a woman there in a tiny G-string costume, spinning, hanging by her teeth up near the thing, and it was all there. And it was all there. And it was all there. Death and eros and risk and drama, and I got it. I got it. So there's all that in the circus, but then there's also the wiggy side, bearded lady, the goat-faced boy, the thing in the bottle, that's the circus. The circus. DMT is somehow the cosmic circus. The circus. The circus. The cosmic circus. It's all just the main event. And then the circus packs up and leaves, and everything is the same except they take the blow out. And every little boy and girl with their skeletons to run out and join the circus. So this is the archetype of DMT, completely self-contained, transformative world filled with all kinds of implications.
I enrolled in a swimsuit course, I think it was called. So it was me and this like really overweight kid, and like these 60-year-old women and men, they could out exercise me like mad. It was really embarrassing. Me and the overweight kid, you know, we'd be just panting ourselves 3/4 to death at the end of the bloody workout, and these 60-year-old women who weren't in great shape were like, you know, chatting away as if nothing was going on at all in the pool. So that was quite embarrassing. And as was going to the weight room, you know, because when I started I could barely bench press 75 pounds, and people used to keep coming over and helping me, which was the last thing I bloody well wanted, but certainly needed. I got to the point where I could bench press 225 pounds. I think that was the best I did, and I gained about 30 pounds of muscle in a year and a half. So that was a good thing. So, like, I was kind of a wild man. So, like, I was kind of a wild man. And, you know, I'm a little bit manic in my temperament, and so I was kind of going every direction at the same time. You know, I don't regret that. I had a fine time when I was a kid, but I needed to get disciplined, and I had to do it because I was working on these hard problems that I've been discussing with all of you, and I've been working on them really obsessively since I was probably about 18, maybe even earlier than that. So, like, I was kind of a wild man. So, like, I was kind of a wild man. Got to the point around 25 when I was in graduate school trying to get my PhD. I published 15 papers by the time I graduated, which was, I think, by a fairly large measure, the most papers that any undergraduate student at that time had ever published at McGill. And at the same time, I wrote Maps of Meaning, which was a terribly difficult thing to do because I was writing about 3 hours a day doing that. And I couldn't do all that and continue with my misbehavior, you know, my sort of, what would you say, my massive hedonistic consumption of alcohol and all of that. I just couldn't keep it up, and also work seriously on the issues that were at hand. So I had to stop. That's a sacrifice. I had to stop messing about and straighten myself out. So, like, I was kind of a wild man. So, like, I was kind of a wild man. So, like, I was kind of a wild man. So, like, I was kind of a wild man. I had to stop. That's a sacrifice. I had to stop messing about and straighten myself out. He's got clout.
As the pressure grew, how do you, as an international speaker, with all of the attention, how do you cope with all of the pressure in terms of hate and everything that goes on?
Quite easily, from a very basic thing. I know what my intent is, and I'm very grounded in it. And I deploy enormous amounts of empathy to my haters. When somebody leaves a comment that I'm a charlatan or a snake oil salesman, or my daddy gave me the money to build the liquor store and I shouldn't be listened to, I understand why they say that. I know it's not true. It feeds me in a very good way. And so for me, to be very honest with you, it's been very easy because when your intent is pure, I think about succeeding in one very simple story. There are two ways, my friends, to build the biggest building in town. Step number one, just build the biggest building in town. Build the biggest building in town. Step number one, just build the biggest building in town. Build the biggest building in town. Step number two, build a decent-sized building and then spend all your time trying to tear everybody else's building around you down so you end up being the biggest building in town. friend, 95% of people try to do number two. But when you know you can build the fucking biggest building in town, you do that. You do that. And so because I know what my intent is, I just don't value anybody's opinion about me, including my parents and wife and children, more than I value my opinion about myself. Just build the biggest building in town. Build the biggest building in town. Step number one. Step number one. Just build the biggest building in town. Build the biggest building in town. Just build the biggest building in town. Build the biggest building in town. Step number one. Step number one. Just build the biggest building in town. Build the biggest building in town.
The substance of the tree is carbon. Where did that come from? That comes from the air. It's carbon dioxide from the air. People look at trees and they think it comes out of the ground. The plants grow out of the ground. But if you ask where the substance comes from, you find out where does it come from. Trees come out of the air? They surely come out of the ground. No, they come out of the air. No, they come out of the air. The carbon dioxide in the air goes into the tree and it changes it, kicking out the oxygen. And pushing the oxygen away from the carbon and leaving the carbon substance with water. Water comes out of the ground. Only it came out of the air, didn't it? Came down from the sky. So in fact, most of it, almost all of the trees is out of the ground. I'm sorry, it's out of the air. Now, of course, I told you the oxygen and carbon stick together very tight. How is it the tree is so smart to manage to take the carbon dioxide, which is the carbon oxygen, nicely combined, and undo that? Life has some mysterious foot. No, the sun is shining. And it's the sunlight that comes down and knocks this oxygen away from the carbon. So it takes sunlight to get the plant to work. And so the sun, all the time, is doing the work of separating the oxygen away from the carbon. The oxygen is some kind of terrible byproduct, which it spits back into the air, and leaving the carbon and water and stuff to make the substance of the tree. Then when we take the substance of the tree and stick it in the fireplace, there's all the oxygen made by these trees. And all the carbon would much prefer to be close together again. And once you let the heat to get it started, it continues and makes an awful lot of activity while it's going back together again. And all this nice light and everything comes out. And everything is being undone. You're going back to carbon and oxygen, back to carbon dioxide. And the light and heat that's coming out, that's the light and heat of the sun that went in. The sun that went in. So it's sort of stored sun that's coming out when you burn the log. So it's sort of stored sun that's coming out when you burn the log.
So it's sort of stored sun that's coming out when you burn the log. So it's sort of stored sun that's coming out when you burn the log.
So it's sort of stored sun that's coming out when you burn the log. So it's sort of stored sun that's coming out when you burn the log.
I think people that don't totally understand what I do with my time. think like I'm a business guy or something like that.
I'm an alien. Alien. I'm an alien. Alien. I don't think you'd necessarily want to be me.
But you think people would like it that much?
It's very hard to turn it off. Might sound great to turn it on, but what if it doesn't turn off? All the time. Doesn't stop. All the time. Doesn't stop. All the time. Doesn't stop. It's like a never-ending explosion. Yeah. I'm an alien. Alien. I'm an alien. Alien. I'm an alien. Alien. I'm an alien. Alien. When I was, 5 or 6 or something, I thought I was insane. Because it was clear that other people did not. Their mind wasn't exploding with ideas. All the time. No. It was just strange. It was like, and strange. I'm an alien.
I hope they wouldn't find out.